Hi everyone, I hope everybody is doing fine. For those who don't me or are new on the channel, I'm Afrite, a humble member of the LionWing community, and I'm known in the Discord server for theory crafting, crazy fun, and working ideas. But let's be honest, it doesn't work all the times. So in this video, it's a follow-up on the previous one that I did a couple of months ago. So be sure to check that one. And yeah, enough talking. Let's jump into the new overread content available on the tabletop simulator. Okay, I lied. Just before we get into the overread stuff, I would like to do a special mention to Notori because in the first video that I did, Natori wasn't out yet. She wasn't added on the tabletop simulator, and let's say she took the scene by storm. No pun intended, because she was the most used gunner in the first tournament called Operation Bulletstorm. And if you didn't see it, there's a video on the LionWing channel that have a couple of clips of the tournament, and you'll see Natori in action. And yeah, she was just really good. She had their go-to loadout of the Tara Kasane with good medicine or either the big idea. Bad medicine wasn't uh, used at all actually. So I'm not gonna do a lengthy section for her. So feel free to just pause the video and read what her cards do. So besides that, now let's get into the real stuff of the video, the real attraction of the video, which is the overeat stuff. Alright, so for the analysis of the two new gunners for overeat, we're gonna go with the first one, the main girl, the main attraction, the poster girl for overeat, which is Amada. She has an end of 3, agility of 3, and an ability which is at the end of your turn you may deal up to 2 hits to yourself, and if you do, draw that many cards from the top of one of your decks. Really useful ability, and it's going to have synergy with our skill cards that we're gonna talk about in a second, and just overall it is a really good ability since Notori again was a big had a big impact in the tournament. Bulletstorm, Operation Bulletstorm again. 5 of end is really good. So to be able to have that and a little bit more speed is really nice. But we're gonna talk about more about loadouts and tactics you can use later on in the video. But now let's go to our skill cards. We are having the first one here is Burning Wrath, Volt of 5. And I'm gonna explain something right now, so like that I'm not gonna repeat it for all the other cards. Um, Amada is a reactive character. What I mean by that is that all of her skill cards all are reactions, and all the rules regarding reaction applies to her. So let's say Datara, which reaction cannot be activated when Datara's fire. That applies also for skill. So be aware of that, but it's a nice tool to have a reaction skill, which is a really nice idea from Keep Dry. Again, uh, really interesting idea. So to to continue on, Burning Wrath, 5 voltage, deal 3 hits to your opponent, then choose 4 cards in your discard pile, then return them to their respective decks and shuffle, and then flip this card face down. It is the basically the same as the good medicine of Notori that I showed just a bit, that I mentioned a bit earlier in this video. Which the Notori one, if you didn't know, it's for 4 voltage. You either choose one of the two effect, which is gain 4 health, or shuffle back 4 or 5 cards. I don't recall correctly, but I think it's 4 since this one is also 4. So it's 4 cards, shuffle them back into their respective deck. So this is the aggressive version of it, since you can activate it on your opponent's turn. So maybe for clutch damage, you just want to be sure that your opponent's getting damage every single turn. Really useful, a really useful card. 3 damage, ramping up. It's a low voltage cost also, so really easy to activate. The next one is gonna be Eat Seeker. There's one of I think it is my second favorite. If we would have go on the on which I like the most, it's probably gonna be in the it's gonna be Ember at Dusk, Eat Seeker, then Burning Wrath. I just love this one. I'm gonna talk about it in a couple seconds. So Eat Seeker, 7 voltage. If your opponent's shot or skill would deal one or more hits, deal that many hits to them instead, and you take no hit as a result. But with Burst, you deal twice that amount. So when I was talking about that, her ability is really useful and as a ish synergy with her skill cards. That's exactly why I said that. So you can accelerate the process of getting into the burst condition. So like that, you can deal more damage to your opponent when they are trying to, let's say, close the game with big damage or just a little bit of damage, but with the burst condition active, you can deal way more damage. So let's say that you are facing someone with one of the main gun of the core set, which is the Enra gun, which is a pistol that can deal 1, 3, or 5 hit. Let's say that they are shooting it for 5 damage, you can activate it for 7 voltage and you deal them 10 damage and you take no damage to result of that. So really good value, and yeah, it's just overall it can be really good, but it's hard to set up at the same time. And last but not least, Embrad Dusk, a really expensive skill card at 10. Negate your opponent's shot or skill. If it's a skill, flip it face down. Then end the turn. Um, it is really interesting for the simple fact that you can negate your opponent's skill or shots. And when I say negate, it is like negate. So let's say that your opponent fires Nue, which is this big antimatter rifle, for 14 damage after loading 6 bullets in it, you can negate the shot. And yeah, that's gonna end their turn. So if they were planning on doing other stuff, you just end their turn and it's your go. So Amada is really useful as and it's a very versatile gunner. As I talked with the winner of the first Operation Bulletstorm, my theory crafting partner Fern, who completely broke the system with Notori. And when we tried a bit, we did play a bit of the Overheated Storm before I did the video, and we both end up in the conclusion that Amara is a very versatile character, and this skill really proves it. And another thing that is really interesting, it can really turns the tide of the game. If I would take by example, your opponent is playing. Um, let's go with the obvious choice. Your opponent is playing Ibana. Ibana with Senko Anabi. Your opponent's going to deal you, let's say, 20 damage because they have 23 voltage. You pay that, you pay 10 voltage, and you just negate it. And if it's a skill, of course, face down, so they can reactivate it later, but it's still saving you from 23, not sorry, from 20 damage, which is a lot. And yeah, it's just really good. It's again hard to set up as a seeker. So if you would go for any loadout with her, Burning Wrath is probably the most safe. But the other two can be also useful if you are playing in certain matchups that you know that are going to be late game, or you know that your opponent might do some crazy amount of damage. So that's it for Amada. Let's go on the second gunner for the Overeat set. All right, second gunner of Overeat, Maka. Maka is really interesting as a gunner when I'm gonna present to you guys. So I'm just gonna zoom in so you can really see her effect. So Maka, out of four, agility of two, second lowest speed, and third biggest end technically. Well, just raw end if you don't um, take in consideration Amada's effect that we just talked about, which is pretty good. She's like average for the stats, to be honest, but it's her effect that really makes her unique. So start a game at 40 health, which is again really good if you facing a deck that just want to OTK you or just do a lot of damage. That extra 10 health can be really useful. But when you activate a skill, choose one of your guns. For the rest of the game, you may not fire that gun or draw cards from its deck. And the result of that is if there's no card remaining in your other gun's deck, you lose the game. And it's not like decking out of, oh, when you draw, it's done. No, 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 it's there's no cards. No matter when, you lose. That's it. And yeah, it's weird, but you're gonna see that her voltage, not her voltage, but her skills really makes up for it. But she has a weird synergy. Fern and I didn't really add a clear strategy with her. There's a lot of stuff you can do with her, but there's also some noticeable weakness. Like if your opponent plays the Tara against her, it's it's really going to be hard to play against your opponent. You're going to see why in a couple of seconds. So let's talk about our first skills, which I think is going to be the most used for all eternity. A volt of zero. Okay, voltage of zero. So you can activate this pretty much anytime you want. But ongoing. At the end of your turn, you may load up two cards from your voltage into one of your guns. Whenever cards are loaded into your gun are placed in your voltage, place them in the discard instead. Then, if it's the burst condition is activate, you'll load up three instead of two cards. So, here's the thing: loading cards when you only shoot. Let's say that you load up a lot of bullets and you shoot. You have a big voltage, then you use that. It's useful. You're reusing your resources that you already used, and yeah, it just can be really useful. But again, when you use a skill, you cannot use the cards from your other guns, and it's not like an infinite loop since you cannot, let's say, shoot from your gun, then go back to voltage. No, they go to the discard. So there's a certain setup for it that you can play it efficiently. But just in general, this is probably the most safe pick for a skill if you want to build a loadout. The next one, which I think is interesting, and I tried to make it work, but I have yet to found a strategy for it. It's never say goodbye. Again, zero voltage, ongoing. At the end of your turn, your opponent lose life equal to half of the number of cards in your voltage, around them down. Then place three cards from your voltage into your discard pile. So in comparison to For All Eternity, you can still load up your guns, then charge up your voltage even more to have a certain consistency of damage at the end of your turn. Then place three cards of your voltage into your discard pile, which is not bad. Again, it's extra damage, which is always nice. But I have yet to make it work. But there is potential. There is certainly potential. There is cards from the Overheated set and just cards in general that makes it really easy to have a big amount of voltage, so you can have the full potential of this card. But again, probably not the safest pick if you are new to the game and try to do some stuff. The last one, all I ever wanted, voltage again of zero, ongoing again. When you are dealt one or more hit, you may place three cards from your voltage into your discard pile to negate all of those hits. Notice it does not negate the effects. So let's say that your opponent has an effect of them gaining health, burn counters, which I'm gonna talk about later, breaks, also, which I'm gonna talk about later, any of that are still going through, but it does nullify the damage, and you can still charge up your voltage because you can still load in your voltage. Very defensive skill, of course. Again, not very, from what I've played so far, I don't I don't see any setup for it, but again, it's depending on how you play on how you play gun and gun. Normally, it's always in a draft sets. You always so normally it's the gunner first, then one gun, then the other gun, then both players choose a skill at like in secret that both of the players don't know about. Then you start a game. So if you notice that your opponent might have a loadout that's going to do a lot of damage, this might be a good cards to save you a turn or two, or even three, because again, it's easy to accumulate voltage, then use this effect at least like 3, 4 times. So again, can be really useful, really a good skill for defensive strategy. So overall, Maka does bring something really unique to the game, and there is yet a strategy or a way to play her to make her really broken, like other gunners, sorry, might be. So really happy with Maka. She's personally my favorite gunner from the two. From the compare it on compare Amara and Maka. She's my favorite. Maka is my favorite. So yeah, now we're going to talk about of the three new guns coming up with Overeat. All right, so we're gonna go on the three guns from the Overeat set really quickly because there is nothing much to talk about right now, since I want you guys to present the cards from the Overeat set. So the first one is going to be Dorome High Pressure Automatic Machine Gun. So basically SMG. Load of 1 deal 1, load of 2 deal 3, load of 3 deal 5, and load of 4 deal 7. Load of 4, which is really good, and it's the fact that cards may not be loaded into Dorome face up, so you cannot have easy access to a lot of special bullet effect, else this gun would be absolutely busted. Being able to load, let's say, 4 armor piercing shell from the new way, which if you have 4 or more bullets loaded in, you do 2 extra damage. It's an extra 8 damage, so this gun would deal an absolute number of 15 damage in one turn, which is way too easy. So yeah, SMG Dorome. The second one, which bring a new mechanic, the Kiyoime, the Hellfire Flamethrower. So again, load of 1, 3, 3 loading bullet, 1 burn, 5, 2 burn, and burn, which is indicated on the card, is burn X amount because you're giving a burn counter to your opponent. Is give your opponent a burn counter and burns uh, the burn counter basically is at the start of your opponent's turn, they are dealt 3 damage times the amount of burn counter. So the burn the burn counter one is going to do 3 damage, sorry, at the start of their turn, and with a 2 is going to be 6. Let that effect for a long while, and the damage is going to be really noticeable, and that can all the burn effect can really do a difference in a match. And last but certainly not least, the Tsuetsuki, the mechanical jammer, um, as a break, as a again a new effect of break. So load of 2, break 1, load of 3, break 2, and load of 4, break 3. What is break? So break is a new mechanic introduced in Overeat, which cause the opponent to well, which cause your opponent to discard certain cards they have. And what I mean by that is that the break effect can resolve when it's resolved. It can break. face down reaction, loaded bullet and guns, mechanism, but only those who cost one or less, and can also break voltage. So you can also slow down your opponent to activate crucial skill cards. So overall, this is a really good tool to just slow down the game so you can get set up and get the best result possible for the matchup. But as you know, in every theory crafting video I do, which there's not a lot, I only did one, but I love to talk about numbers, and that's what we are going to talk about. We're going to go into uh, my arsenal, aka Google Drive, that I just have the stats of every gun deck, and we're gonna talk about those three uh, percentage and stats for their gun deck. Right, welcome to the arsenal. So, um, this is a Google sheet that I have, and I happily can share with you guys on the Discord. But basically, it's a Google sheet that I just keep track on every stats and composition of every guns deck. So for this one, we're gonna look at the last three, which is the Dorome, Kyoime, and Toetsuki. So the Dorome has a load of 4, which is the highest, and a weight of 4, which is pretty good if you want to go for like those tiebreaker with the speed when you are facing with the same gunner as you. Really good, really good. Kyoime, load of 1, weight of 7. It's a classic um, gun with special effect or special just ability if you compare it to, let's say, the U1 that mills cards from your opponent, and the Tara or Nue, which is like a big rifle, or even Akumen, which is like a crossbow. So it's, it's normal, it's standard. And Suitsuki, again, load of 1, weight of 7, because it's a weird gun. What I mean by weird is just, again, special visualized gun and all that. So now let's talk about the composition of each of them. So for the Dorome, there's literally 0 special bullet. There's 3 reaction and 17 action, which is the most. And yeah, the action part of the Dorome deck is really useful. There is a lots of nice and useful cards in there, like a extra turn card, charge voltage. There's also a card that makes you able to shuffle back cards from your discard pile into the decks. It's really useful, very nice. And the backfire, which is the only 3 reaction in the Doromis deck, it's a price of 2 cards in your hand and deals your opponent 6 damage, which is really nice. Kyoime, special bullet of 4, only 1 action, and 12, a whopping 12 reaction, and 3 mechanism. Let's not forget those, because those are really useful. So, the special bullet for the Kyoime is a refill shot, which when fired, you just take one of your 2 decks and load 1 card in the top of the gun that just fired the refill bullet. Really useful. Again, it helps charging up guns that might need a lot of loading bullet, so like that it just accelerate the process that you can fire them and not successfully, but in multiple turns in a row. The only action, again, the only action is Inferno. It is a action card like the Tara, the Uwan, and the Nue, which is discard the max amount of ammo you can get into the gun, pay a price to activate the card, and it does something special. In this case, for the Kyoime, it's uh, remove 5 loaded bullets and pay 2 cards from your hand. Give your opponent a whopping 4 burning counters. And when we saw not so long ago, the max you can give it's 2 for the price of 5. So now it's a price of 8, and you give 4 of them, which is a lot. And the reaction, again, might talk. I'm not gonna talk about them right now. I'm gonna talk about them a bit more into the loadout section of this video. And mechanism, same thing. The Tsuetsuki, for special bullet there's 3, action there's 9, reaction there's 6, and mechanism there is 5. So a pretty even based deck, I should say. The special bullet for the Tsuetsuki is when fired, your opponent cannot activate their skill next turn. So after you fire this special bullet at them on their turn, they cannot activate their skill, which is again it's pretty useful. Like Tsuetsuki is really good to just slow the game down just a little bit. Um, the action card really useful. There's a lot of them again for disruption or either card advantage. Reaction really good, really good. I'm gonna talk about them uh, in a minute. And for the mechanism, again, super useful. Just this gun as a really good set for the lesser popular gunners uh, in the core set and even in Overheat. So just amazing. Now for the draw percentage. So the percentage of drawing X type of card or even a card with special effects. So the Dorome, of course, you have zero chance of drawing a special bullet, but you have 80%, 85% chance of drawing a action card, 15 for reaction, and 0 again for mechanism. For Kyoime, you have 25, 60, and 15. So you have more chance of getting a reaction card than any other card type in the deck. And for Soetsuki, it's pretty much the same thing, but a higher concentration of action and mechanism, but certainly more of the action side. So you have a 15, 45, 15, and 25. And now for the special effects of those 3 guns. So I would like to for you guys to keep track on line number 8, 9, and 10. So we're gonna go here. So line 8 is the Dorome, 9 is Kyoime, then 10 is the Tsuetsuki. So with Dorome, you have a whopping 65% chance of drawing a card that is going to give you either card advantage or draw. What I mean by draw or card advantage is everything that gets you draw cards or even gets you utilize or reuse cards you already used. Example, I told you guys about an action card in the Dorome deck that gives you the ability of shuffling back 5 cards in total into either of your decks. So really good again. Loading bullet, there is not much, but there is some. But again, it's more like voltage and stuff like that. Additional damage, there is again, it's just the reaction that gives you like 6 extra damage, but it's not really that. And the disruption and support. It's mainly because some of them are just like, oh, negate the your opponent cannot activate reaction this turn or uh, stuff like that. Well, I don't think it's negate the reaction, but it is something similar to that. I will gonna get back to it either in this video or we're gonna talk about it in Discord. Then the support, it's again just low percentage, and the support is the extra turn, the only extra turn cards in the gun and gun game. Now, Kyoime, there is a draw advantage. There's a couple of them. There is a lots of loading bullets cards in there. There's a reaction that gives one. There's the special bullets. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's like a good amount of reaction that gets you cards in your hand and loads cards in your guns and helps you with like damage reduction and all that stuff. So that's why there's a good amount of loading bullet and support because again, it's all about helping the gunner, helping the player, loading their stuff. And additional damage is just again because of the Inferno card, which is again a whopping 12 damage at the start of your opponent's turn, which is a lot. And for the last one, the Tsuetsuki, as you can see, it's only divided in 2 options. So there is card draw and 60% chance of disruption because again Tsuetsuki is made for disruption deck. It's only there for that. There's also support things like draw cards and all that, but it's mainly draw and disruption. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of loadout that I experienced with, or I think they can be good. Again, don't take my word for granted. It's just me testing out some stuff, and I think on personal experience that those can be good, those can be interesting, and all that. So let's go back on Tabletop Simulator so I can show you the idea I got for you guys. All right, so the loadouts that I have for you guys. There's a lot of them. Well, there's less than the first video, but I think they are more interesting, if that makes any sense. So, first one, Ibana with Senko Anabi, Soitsuki, and Dorome. I did a brief, I explained a bit why this is good and this, but I'm going to show it to you. So, this loadout is good with Ibana and the strategy of doing a big Senko Anabi because of those two cards from each of their decks. So Recharger, for the cost of one, at the end of your opponent's turn, uh, draw from the top of one of your decks until you have 5 cards in hand. This is really good because it gives you a refill for reaction. Let's say that you have paid two cards from your hand to do 6 damage with the backfire, which is a reaction from Darome that deals 6 damage. You can just replenish those cards plus drawing extra cards since Ibana only has 3 of hands. But now, each time it's going to be your turn, you most likely going to have 5 cards in hand, which is really good. And that with that, that makes her an agility 5 and a 5 gunner. Really useful. Then Heat Up. Okay, so Heat Up is really good. There's 6 copies of it in the Doro Maze deck, and it reads: place 1 card from the top of either of your decks into your voltage. So already good. Cost 0, charge 1 voltage. If your gunner's agility is equal or less than your opponent, place another card from the top of one of your decks into your voltage. If your gunner's end value is equal or less than your opponent's, draw 1 card from the top of one of your decks. So most of the time you are going to place 1 voltage and draw 1 card. But what is special with Dorome is that if you face the same gunner, let's say that it's a mirror match against Ibana versus another Ibana's loadout. Eat Up is going to charge 1 voltage, another one, and draw you a card. So in one turn, you would charge your voltage for 4 total if you use Ibana's ability, and you would draw 1 card. It is a lot, and to load 4, you didn't even shoot yet. So shooting, okay, so let's say that you have three cards in hand. You play that, you have 3 cards in hand again, you already loaded 2, you load 2 from Ibana's ability, you are at 4 voltage, but you still have 3 cards in your hand, so you can just load the 3 of them into Dorome, do 5 damage, and in one turn you already have 7 voltage ready for Senkwana in like a couple of turns, which is really good. And the biggest Senkwana I did with this setup against Fern was like a Senkwana of 27, which is a lot. 27 when you start at 30 health, a Senko Anabi of 27 is a lot. Next one. Next loadout that I think is interesting is Kiriko with maximum reload. No way, this is nothing new. This is a combo that we already knew about for a while because it makes you be able to do 28 damage. But this time we have Kiyohime. Why Kiyohime is good in this setup in particular? Well, I have a theory. It's an idea that I had for a while, which was so best case scenario, you shoot Kiyohime for 2 burn counters. You vault for 6. Either way, you vault you vault for 6. You can either shoot if you don't have the card that I'm gonna talk about in end, or you play Inferno. So Discard 5 bullets loaded in Kyoime. Give your opponent 4 burns counter. Sorry. So with that setup, you use a lot of resources. When I'm not gonna lie, but you give your opponent 6 burn counters, which is 20. No, sorry, not 20. It is 18 damage at the start of their turn for each turn because there is no way to take out counters, burn counters yet. We don't know. In the future, we might have cards that do that, but for now, burn counters are really strong, and that loadout in general is really good because you have the refill, which is this one. You have the refiller ammunition, the refiller shell for either Kyoime or Niue that loads up more cards. You have cards from Niue that loads up cards in a gun, then draw cards and stuff. So there's a lot of loading going on, and this setup is really nice because you either have the option of going slow with like Kyoime and just burn. Then after that you load up Niue, or you just can load up Niue and go the old strategy of Niue maximum reload. But since you have refiller and you have the burst condition, you are probably going to use the end of at the end of the turn. If your life is lower than your opponent, load one card. But again, if you lose Niue maximum reload in one turn in one go, probably not in this case because it is again 28 damage, which is a lot. It can be more depending on on how much special bullet from Niue you load into Niue, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, Koime with this setup, really nice, really interesting. Another aggressive loadout with maximum reload with the Kyoime is now with Dorome. So as previously mentioned, Dorome is really good because it loads cards really fast with Eat Up. And with Kuriko, most of the time you are going to load one voltage and probably one more. Um, because either your speed is going to be less or equal. Well, not the agility. Most of the end because um, people are mostly going to play Notori because we all know Notori is good. But this setup is aggressive. I Fern played this against me, and in one turn he dealt me like 7 damage, but put me already with two burn counters on me because he used maximum reload on turn one. So yeah, this setup is really nice for that sole purpose of really aggressive and load the voltage really, 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 really fast. But yeah, again, just heads up, if you use Dorome in a mirror match, like if you play a mirror match and you and your opponent plays the same gunner, pick Dorome. Dorome is just so good, just for that extra volt charge and draw. It's just yeah, it's a no-brainer. Uh, Fourth loadout. Ah yes, fourth loadout. Natori is back again with good medicine and Datara, but this time Tsuetsuki is there. It is a grindy loadout. Fern played this against me, and Fern found out a new, let's say, infinite loop that you can do, and this time it is a true infinite loop. We might explain this in the next video or at some point, but this is really useful. And why it is useful and it is really a grindy deck, first of all, it is a control deck if you compare it to like any other card game. It's because of this. Noise generator, cost of 0. Your opponent may only activate one action per turn. Okay, so when your opponent is playing Niue, Dorome, or you know, other attack or not attacks but other gun decks that use a lot of action and you use noise generator against them, they literally have no option and you're just going to have to deal with it unless they play Tsuetsuki. Else, if they didn't play Tsuetsuki, they are screwed because they're not going to be able to get mechanism off noise generator off the field. So you already slow down the game a lot just by reducing the action they can do per turn. You break voltage and reaction, and you have a constant damage that cannot be reacted to. And you have, again, if you load 4 with Datara, if you didn't know, Datara has an ability that at the end of your turn, return one card of your choosing into your discard pile. And again, good medicine. Choose 4 cards from your discard pile and return them to their respective decks. So this, it is the most controlly aspect, the most grindy setup you can have right now with Overeat. So yeah, just strong again. It's Notori, we all know, but now more tools to control the state of the game. Next one, Maka with Uwan and For All Eternity, and with Dorome. Ah, yes, Dorome again, aggressive loadouts, just easy if you don't have anything to do for the turn. Just load all your cards or a couple of cards into Dorome just for extra damage. There's action cards like I mentioned, give you extra turn, give you volt charge. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And with Uwan, just with the disruption effect of milling and all that stuff. So this is really to this strategy is just to get um, lots of card into the voltage to load them into Uwan, then just mill your opponents out for 2 cards per turn, which is not that big of a deal. But if you have cards in your hand, you can go up to 4, which is a bit better and all that stuff. But what you could do is when you use Maka, because let's not forget that Maka, when you use one of your skill cards, you cannot use one of your guns or draw from them. You can still load you can still load into the gun, but you may not fire it. And one as a card like Inferno, which is discard 2 from your hand, discard 3 cards from your from Uwans. You discard your hand, you discard your end, you is it discard your hand? I don't recall, but it's basically your opponent choose one of their decks, they mill 5, then you draw 5. But I always forgot if you have to discard your end before you draw the 5. I think so, but I don't remember. But yeah, it's just, again, you can still load the gun and use, let's say, that card if you already have it in your hand before you use For All Eternity. So yeah, just really good setup for aggressive loading, and after that milling for the All Eternity setup. And also you have 40 health, so it's always good to tank a bit more damage. So yeah, really good. Another one that that I think of and might be good, but again it's hard to set up, is the Kyoime Kasane with Amara and Heat Seeker. So burn counters, we already talked it about that. The Kyoime deck is just good. The burn counter are good, and which is really interesting is that there's a mechanism that I'm gonna talk about right after this one, because it had a special interaction with Notori, but it is called Fire Absorber, which when your opponent gets hit for 1 hit or more, you heal 1 damage. So you heal 1 hit. So really good with the burn counters and interacts with that. So each time your opponent gets 3 damage because of the burn counters, they are going to heal you for like 1. And if you have multiple, you can heal for more. But the setup is really for the burst to try to get the biggest setup for the Eat Seeker, because you get damage from her if you, let's say, life tap, like Fern and I called it. You take 2 damage, then draw 2. When you fire Kasane, you take damage when firing it, so it gets you closer to the burst condition, so like that when your opponent activates a skill or shoot from one of their gun with a lot of damage, you can just negate the damage and reversal the damage to them with like double the amount of damage. So it's a nice setup. There's draw in the Kasane. There is also damage reduction into the Kyoime. There's a little bit of eel. There's like Last Stand with Kasane again with Operation Bulletstorm. We really did see the Kasane shine with the setup of Notori. But yeah, really interesting setup to use with the self-damaging strategy. Um, this setup again, weirdly enough, with the overeat, hold on is actually relevant now because it can be activated really easily with this setup or just now in general since now there's a lot of damage per time effect, so you can either activate it for 8 voltage or 6. So Ran with hold on, Kyoime and Enra, it's pretty obvious what we're going for here with double bullet and refiller shell. um, just load into Kyoime as fast as possible to get the burn counter go off, and with the Rand's ability to load into the Kyoime and Enra to just get also Oldon going up really fast, so like that you can get that sweet at the end of your turn, gain 4 health. So yeah, pretty obvious setup and pretty just fun to use. I think that was the first setup I did when testing the overeat stuff, and it's really fun, really fun. Now, this is the interesting one, and it's going to be the last one I'm going to present to you guys, and this is the most interesting one. So, Akuman, Kyoime, Gurmesen, and Notori. So, there's a lot of ill going on, and the reason why is with this. So, a thing to just keep in mind, if you face a Notori with Kyoime, do not use Kyoime against Notori, because Notori can heal a lot of damage. So the matchup was Fern using this setup, and I was using the setup that I talked to you about right here. So what happened is that I managed to do my combo that I talked about of getting, 6 burn counters on Notori, which I was like, yes, I did it. I did the thing. But here's the weird interaction. So Fern add 2 fire absorber, which when your opponent is dealt 1 or more hits, including burn effect, you gain 1 health. I did 6 counters on uh, on Notori, 18 damage. Whenever you are dealt 3 or more hits, deal 1 to your opponent. So 6, the burn counter are all separate interactions. So the first one deals 3, I get deal 1, and because of Notori's effect. Then, because I took 1 damage and Fern had 2 fire absorber on the field, it would heal him for 2. So my 18 damage total of burn damage was reduced to now only 6. So each burn, each fire absorber against a burn strategy, let's say Notori Kyoime versus with whatever else setup versus a gunner with also Kyoime, fire absorber is going to reduce the damage by 30% for each fire absorber um, on the field. If all 3 mechanism, because there are, if you notice on the video a bit before when I was talking about the percentage of the draw, the mechanism and all that in each deck, there is 3 fire absorber. So the if your opponent with Notori and the Kyoime has 3 fire absorber and you try to burn them down, you are completely locked out of the game because all your burn counters are not going to help you. And it's not them that's going to take damage, it's you that's going to take damage for each burn counter instances. Which this is a lot of healing. Again, it's a lot of healing. You have the Akumen, you have the loadout, you have the gain health, reduce, and all that. Like just in general, how Notori is made. Again, it's supposed to be an overeat video, but again, Notori has so much thing to talk about, and she's just so good. Because even after all the games of testing I did with Fern, And just on my side, Notori is still really good. And this interaction again is it's nuts, but really good. I have no other words to say than it's just good. So with that, that concludes theory crafting video number 2 with Overeat. I hope you guys liked it, and feel free to hit me up on Discord. Feel free also to join the Discord of LionWing. We're super joyful community. We're super wholesome also. We're super just nice if you want to play games. We're also really hyped about all the products of LionWing, like maybe lots of you are. So don't forget to show your support to LionWing, but also don't forget to join the Discord to not miss the fun. So with that said, guys, I hope you're gonna have a nice day. I hope you had a nice day. I hope you're gonna have a nice evening, morning, whenever you're gonna watch this video. And I see you later. Peace.